Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our final boarding call, and the doors will be closing soon.
Hey everybody, welcome back to ResortLoop.com. I'm Tim Scott.
I'm Bob Collar.
And this is the gateway to the magic. And Bob, this show's just a little more magical today.
Oh, man, isn't it though?
I am very excited.
Oh, so am I. So am I. Something near and dear to both of our hearts.
We could not survive without this. But joining us on this episode, number 107 of ResortLoop.com, is the Chief Operations Officer and Head Roastmaster for Joffrey's Coffee, Chris DeMezzo. Chris, thanks for joining us here on ResortLoop.com.
My pleasure.
Now, we're very excited because recently, actually it goes longer than recently, we'll get into this later, you've got the new Disney blends that we were able to purchase.
That's correct.
So we're very excited about that. So we were thinking we need to do a coffee show.
Absolutely.
Bob's a big fan of the coffee, as am I.
Yes, we are. I got to say, there is nothing better. And I'm not, there's no kissing up here. I'm just saying, there is nothing better than sitting out on the balcony in the morning before you get started for your day while everybody else is getting ready with a cup of your coffee, sitting on the balcony overlooking Walt Disney World.
Well, I can't argue with you there. Can't argue with you there.
I told Chris that when I contacted him because, last year we were at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and in the room they had the Joffrey's coffee in those little pods now.
Oh, yeah.
So I made a pot of that, and Bob, it was some of the best coffee I've ever had on property anywhere. I even commented to my wife, and she was like, "What is this smell in here? It is fantastic."
Yeah. You guys make a fantastic roast, and we're going to kind of get into that. But you guys have been doing this now with Disney. You've been partnered with Disney since 95, right?
That's correct.
Over at where did you
long
start?
Long courtship.
You guys started where? Over at one of the water parks, right?
That's correct. We had a test in Typhoon Lagoon. Way back then. That was number one.
That must have
remember trying to push that heavy cart through the sand at 2:00 in the morning. I'll never forget that day.
Is that right? You actually did that?
Oh, I've been here since almost day one. The day. This is I don't mean to get off track, but it was funny. Joffrey started out in a little one-room building over by Tampa Airport. So if you were on the phone and a plane was taking off, you had to put your hand over it and say, "Excuse me," and the plane would take off. So it was like a little one-room schoolhouse. We had a 45-kilo roaster, some barrels that the roasted coffee would go on, and then my wife would sit up in the front of this room like the school teacher, and she would take the orders. And one day she called me up, walked back to where I was, and said, "There's a gentleman on the phone from Walt Disney World." And I'm like, "Okay, honey, yeah." And she goes, "No, I'm serious. He wants to talk to you." And I said, "Come on, honey, I'm busy." And she goes, No, you need to talk to him." And believe it or not, the gentleman had gone into our retail store in Hyde Park and had a cup of our coffee and said, "We'd really like to talk to you. You got great coffee. We think that, we might be able to sell this coffee on property." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
So I spoke to him and I ran right into the acting president at the time, and a couple of weeks later we had an appointment, and that was where we started to hash out the groundwork for the first test cart. And that's how our humble beginnings began with Walt Disney World.
Oh, that's incredible.
Wow. Now, are you in all of the deluxe resorts?
Yes.
All right. And then you have the
Vacation Club properties.
Oh, okay.
Including Hawaii.
Oh, very nice. Now, is that a Kona? Bob's a big fan of the Kona.
That's a Kona blend. Correct.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Kona coffee. So a big Kona blend fan.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you also have some shops within the Walt Disney World properties in the parks, right?
That's correct. We are probably the largest independent operator, food and beverage operator on property with 18 coffee carts, and then we also have a couple of donut carts little mini donuts, which I strongly advise you to stay away from. They're highly addictive.
Oh,
Those in the coffee, you're done.
oh.
You're not gonna leave that park. And it's in the water park, so it really shows rather quickly. So that's not a good thing. You
No
can't
hiding.
hide it. And then we also have a couple of little ice cream carts, I believe, in the water parks as well.
That's
That's
awesome.
very cool.
Now, before we get too much into the Disney stuff, tell us like what you do as the head roast master. Because when I called you or emailed you, when then we talked, you could not go on the show right away because you were busy going to, was it Guatemala and Nicaragua?
I was in Nicaragua and Costa Rica.
Oh, Costa Rica. Oh, I love the Costa Rican coffee. So when you go down there, what are you doing?
I actually meet with the farmers, and I like to go to the farms and visit with them for a multitude of reasons. Number one is if you go to a farm and you walk up into the mountains with the farmer, and as you're walking, you're observing and you're looking, and in some parts of the world, when you're going to a farm, there's trash and litter scattered about, there's weeds overgrown, trees aren't pruned, and that, as a roaster, kind of tells me this guy is not really focused on quality. And then when you go to a farm where you're walking up in the mountains with the farmer and all the trees are nice and evenly pruned, everything looks healthy, there's no litter on the ground, that's telling me that this guy is, paying attention to quality. He's taking care of his trees, and in turn his trees are going to take care of him. And then we go, further in and we see, how he's treating the people that work there, what their accommodations are like. Do they look happy? Is everybody, smiling? And is everybody understanding what their role is? That they're only to pick the ripe cherries and, all those different kinds of things. And then we'll go down to if there's a mill on the actual farm. Sometimes they do the first processing stage on the farm, and you just want to make sure that they're doing everything, using the right water. Are they not discharging water back into the streams that these people are washing the clothes or cooking with? Those little kind of things that you learn as you go on in this business. And just make sure everything is intact. And then we actually get the chance to sample some of the coffee, while it's actually still growing. I've been doing this for a few days now, and, when we cup coffees while it's still growing, it'll tend to have what we call a green or grassy, or, we'll call it young or underdeveloped. But over time, your palate adjusts to that, and that over time, when that coffee's processed properly and has enough time to rest, then that grassiness will go away. So what you're really doing at that point is just cupping for defects and just making sure that the coffee has all the desirable aspects. And then, once it's been put through the complete processing stage, it normally goes into rest for 1 to 2 months. And that gives the coffee the flavors a chance to develop. And then it gets shipped out to us for the actual roasting.
Looking at your website, and everybody, please go to Joffreys.com. It's a fantastic website, and you'll also be able to find out more about the company. But you guys are really serious about what you do. It's not, okay, let's just get some coffee and sell it and make a profit off of this. You guys really, and just by what you said, you guys really take your time to make sure you're getting the best coffee product to then distribute to us. I mean, you're really serious about this.
Yeah, because, I'm a stickler for, paying attention to detail and focus on quality. Any good chef will tell you your recipe is only as good as your ingredients.
Right.
When my introduction into the business, many years ago was here's what the green coffee looks like, here's the barrel it goes into, and here's how to turn on the roasting machine, and here's what you need to make it look like when it's done. Have a nice day.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of my introduction to roasting. So in the beginning, I was terrified, and all I really concentrated on was not burning the place down. So back in those days, I made a lot of what I call unintentional espresso, which means, my roasting style was all over the place. About 2 years into it, I finally got the nerve up to actually start tasting what I was doing. And I had this epiphany. It was like, oh my God, this is actually pretty good. My prior experience with coffee was dipping my biscotti in my grandmother's heavily cream and sugared Maxwell House.
Uh-huh.
And that was really, so really, the first 2 years I wasn't even cupping, which is the most valuable tool any roaster has. I wasn't even cupping, my results. Then when I had that first cup and said, then I started to cup and not cup in the true sense of the word. I was just drinking it.
Right.
But then, because of my Italian background and growing up in the kitchen on my mother's apron, I had some sensory experience with, cooking in different flavors. And I took that experience and used it to foster, to build my coffee knowledge. And what I would do is I would start now, say, okay, I roasted it this way for this long and it tastes like this. So now let me turn the heat up a little, do it this way, and let me see what happens. And for that next year, every day I would just go nuts. It was an 8-hour day. I'd be there 14, 15 hours, and my wife would be sitting there like, can we go home now? It's like, hold on, honey, I want to see something. And I read every book I could get my hands on, and I had, very fortunate to deal with some people that I bought green coffee from who families had been in coffee for generations, and I just sucked every bit of knowledge. And then I just started mixing different beans together to see what profile I would get, playing around. So, I guess after 5 or 6 years, I started to become, somewhat confident and somewhat accomplished as a roaster. And then about 10 years in, I had felt that I had done just about everything I could do on my end. So now I wanted to find out what goes on where they actually produce it, so that I could see how I could affect change there to get, to bring it back to the roast itself. And at that time, the direct trade with farmers was, just getting started. And these guys, we consider ourselves experts at roasting, but we really don't know anything at all about producing or growing coffee. And these gentlemen are experts at growing. That's all they've done for generations. But they knew nothing about roasting.
Huh.
So they didn't know that I needed them to make sure they didn't ferment that coffee any longer than it needed to be, or otherwise it would get an off taste. Because like me, when I began my roasting career, they never cupped. They grew it, but they never brewed it.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, what we do is we went over there and we bought, these little inexpensive electric, they were basically a modified hot air popcorn poppers. And we'd bring these little roasters over there and teach these farmers how to cup and say, okay, so now you know what to look for. And what it did is it made my life and my customers' lives much better because we got better quality. And the farmers, in turn, benefited because they improved their quality, which in turn allowed them to earn more for their coffee. So it's a win-win for both people.
Well,
and that's what we do today when we go over there, is now they're trying all different honey processed coffees and all these other things. But what we've done is we've learned to communicate with one another. Because I can only work with what they give me. If they're not giving me, superior quality coffee, it doesn't really matter how good a roaster I am. It's, it's you can only work with what you've got. And that's why we're so hard on our people that work for Joffreys, because all that hard work that goes in on the producing end, all that hard work that goes in here to make sure it's roasted properly and gets out of here quickly and gets out to our customers. And that's why our people are extremely put through some rigorous training, because that's the last most crucial moment, is right before you hand it to that guest. So we want to make sure that every step of the way is monitored and taken care of. So you are serving the best product possible.
Right. And ultimately,
that,
we're the ones that benefit the most because your coffee is fantastic.
I hope so. I mean, people always remark that when they come in and tour our plant that, you can stop anywhere in the plant, anywhere along the way, and ask anybody what their job is, and they start telling you how important their role is in the process. Because everybody's brought in. And I guess it comes from me being a crazy person and running around and making sure that everybody understands your job is very important. This is your contribution to the final product.
That's one of the things that fascinates me so much about coffee. It's so global and so involved in all the steps for just a cup of coffee that I know I enjoy every single morning. Just to think about what goes into it.
If you've ever been to Origin and seen all the hard work that these guys do over there. It takes 4 or 5 years for a tree to mature till it gives you the absolute yield. And then, the mountains that you have to walk up, and a lot of these, there's no tractors, and, you're walking with bags of coffee on your back, down slippery roads. You can't, it doesn't ripen all at once. So you're going back and hand picking, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times to get all the ripe coffee.
Wow.
Then you have to process it right away, otherwise it starts to turn.
Oh.
And then if you've got to dry it, if it's on the patio, you're drying it and you're turning it every hour for sometimes a week. The amount of work is very laborious, and a lot of hard work goes into it.
And like you said,
definitely shows you.
The only way you can do it.
And it's not
right
apparently easy to get to some of these places where you have to go.
No. Sometimes it's a 4-hour Jeep ride up, and it's only maybe a 4-mile journey, but it takes about 4 hours sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Because the roads, you can only get up there with a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and, you're going up a mountain, so there's no such thing as a straight road. No guardrails either.
and some of the places you're going aren't all that safe either.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you ever feel unsafe, in danger?
A couple of times. When we get into those areas, they usually provide security for us because they don't, naturally they wouldn't want anything to happen to us because we're their source of income. They do take pretty good care of us. But kidnapping is very popular in some places still.
Oh,
right.
Oh, my.
And, they can tell you're not one of them. You stick out like a sore thumb. So you're an easy, $20,000, $30,000 price tag, which $20,000 or $30,000 up in some of these places is, retirement money. They never have to work again. But
yeah.
But that doesn't happen very often.
We certainly appreciate the effort that you guys put into it. I know, I just, obviously I don't buy specialty coffee every day, but I know, like, every now and then I'll get a coffee that's kind of acidic and it doesn't leave a good feeling in my stomach, but I have never had that issue with your coffee at when I visit Walt Disney World. It's just so smooth. It is so smooth.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Lower quality coffee will tend to have that bitterness, and then improperly roasted coffee will definitely have that bitterness as well. It's the acidity in coffee is a good thing. It gives it what we call a sparkle or a snap, a crispness. But then again, if it's a poor quality coffee that is not roasted properly, or it's not brewed properly, that will highlight that acidity. There's only a certain amount of flavor that you can get out of a certain amount of roasted and ground coffee. And if you put too much water over a certain bed of ground coffee, after a certain period of time, you stop extracting the desirable flavor compounds, and there's only 2 compounds left to extract, and both of those compounds are bitter, which happen to be caffeine and acid. So too little coffee is as bad or probably worse than too much coffee in a brew. What determines the strength of coffee, when people think about the strength of coffee, they equate it to, it's a dark roast, so it's going to be real strong. Some of the coffees that you're enjoying on Disney property or a French roast, which is a kind of a dark coffee. But people remark how smooth it is, and it's got a natural sweetness in it. Again, that's taking care during the roasting process to bring the coffee up to the right temperature under the right heat, and then what you're doing is you're caramelizing the sugars rather than burning the sugars. Do you ever have a cup of coffee that is very, very bitter and astringent, makes the hair in the back of your neck stand up, gives you that metallic taste on the back of your tongue that you have to drink water when you're done?
Yes,
that means you roasted it. Yep. That means you roasted it way too quickly under too much heat, and you burn the sugars versus caramelizing them and letting them remain sweet.
Huh.
So the strength of coffee is not determined by the roast. It's the coffee to water ratio is really what determines the strength of coffee.
Interesting.
What's the optimal way you would make a cup of coffee? Would you use a K-cup? For your optimal cup of coffee, how would you brew it? Would you use a K-cup?
Oh.
Would you use a drip maker?
French press.
I've always heard about a French press, but I've never used one.
It is coffee and water. That's the beauty of it. And you control all the variables. You control the temperature of the water. You control the amount of water. And you also control the steep time, the amount of time that you want the coffee in contact with the water. But you get the ultimate extraction versus when you use a paper filter, K-cups, which are a necessary evil. I don't think they brew a really, really good cup of coffee, but they're a necessary evil because we're a lazy society and we love the convenience. But if you're a true coffee lover, then you're going to be able to spare 4 minutes out of your day to make yourself, this really, really great cup of coffee, which is what it would take you for the French press. I could take a layperson and bring them to and I do this often when I have somebody come and visit. I make a pot of French press coffee and then make a regular pot of drip coffee. Now, even if you're not an expert and you don't drink coffee for a living, I can put these 2 cups next to you of the exact same coffee, brewed the exact same way, but one with the paper filter, one without, and you'll be able to tell me the difference. You might not be able to tell me what it is, but you'll tell me this one is different.
Yeah.
And if you're a true coffee lover, you'll tell me you like the one that was brewed on the French press better because it did not trap all the DSS, which is your dissolved soluble solids, in the paper filter when you're using your French press. When you drink your French press coffee and get to the bottom of the cup, you'll see a little bit of sediment on the bottom of that cup. Those are the solids that were in suspension in that liquid that didn't, completely dissolve, and that's what your palate's picking up as the body. Now, it's not like having grounds where, it's offensive when you get it in your mouth. When you drink the last little bit of this, if you get some of that sediment in your mouth, if you run your tongue over your teeth, it's still very, very slippery. It's not, it's not gritty at all. That's how fine those particles are. And all those particles are what's contributing to that really intense flavor that you get out of brewing coffee the French press method.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah,
sort of like espresso. Why espresso is so intense in flavor. Same kind of thing, only, it's a finer grind, quicker extraction under pressure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got all these Disney blends for different restaurants, hotels. How do you come up with the blends for the different...
Shortly after we started the test cart at Typhoon Lagoon, they gave us another one in downtown Disney, and then we went to Blizzard, and then we went into Epcot. When we got into Epcot finally, some of the resort chefs would come by our carts and have a cup of coffee and say, "Oh, I got to get this in my restaurant." So I was contacted. Now, back then, there was a contract with another company that had most of the, and I had one chef and general manager that said, "You know what? We might get our hands slapped, but we just got to try this." So we kind of snuck in through the back door. The Flying Fish was the first restaurant we did this at.
Okay.
And they came out to the roasting plant, and I sat down with the chef, and I said, "Okay, chef, what statement do you want to make with your coffee? What do you want your guests to take away? What is some of your signature dishes?" And, one of their signature dishes, still to this day, which is one of my favorites, is the potato crusted red snapper.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great dish. So anyway, it's a pretty hearty meal. It's got a nice sauce served with it, and then some of their desserts are really nice. So I said, you guys could probably get away want to go towards something with, a little bit of an Indonesian in it that has a nice little bit of a fruit note, but still some nice, smooth, rich, syrupiness as well. It's a lingering finish, sort of like a red wine kind of coffee, if I may, like a Cabernet.
Wow. Yeah.
So we sat down and started with a base blend, and then we just added a little of this, took out a little of that to get it to the right highlights at exactly where we wanted it, and that became Flying Fish Blend. And we started serving that, and then naturally we got caught, but because of the success, they went to the powers that be, and we got a little bit of an exemption for the time being for that class of restaurant. So naturally, some of the other chefs, because they're always watching each other,
right? Yes, they are.
Which is a beautiful thing because they all, everybody benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "Well, I want a coffee for my restaurant." So next thing you know, the chef and general manager from the California Grill, "Can we come and see you?" I said, "Why, of course." So we came in, and then, I always like to sit down with the chef and say, "Okay, what is your cuisine? What is your signature dish? What kind of desserts are you doing? Are they light? Are you doing death by chocolate? Because you want something, a hearty coffee." Some of the restaurants really focus on breakfast and lunch only. So some of those you want a little bit of a lighter coffee with a little, like I said, some of that acidity with a little crispness and sharpness. Because you'll serve, a little bit lighter coffee,
right,
during the day part hours versus, the cup of coffee that you would give somebody after they just finished one of those delicious New York strips at the Option Steakhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You want something that's going to, and then you're going to have that decadent dessert after that beautiful steak. So, that's going to be something a little bit heartier.
So let's go through what you guys at least offer on your website. And these are Disney approved blends, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so
the actual blends the guests enjoy while they're dining.
Excellent. So the first one would be Artist Point. Then you have Carthay Circle Restaurant, which I can't wait to try.
Oh.
Flavors of Africa. Where's that one at? Where's the Flavors of Africa? Over at the Animal Kingdom?
Yes, it is. That would be Chico.
Chico. Okay. You also have a Chico blend. Of course, you said the Flying Fish Cafe and Flying Fish Cafe Espresso. The French Bistro Blend Cafe. In-room. These are the in-rooms, and the French Bistro
That's
Blend
correct.
In-room. So, like I said, the Jinko one. Are those the only ones that you're doing right now, or can you give us some breaking news on some new ones you might be working on?
This just in?
I can't.
Ooh. Wait, a ResortLoop.com exclusive?
I don't get myself in trouble here.
Uh-oh.
That's right.
That is phase one of 3 phases. Another one of my favorites, Citricos. Narcooses.
Oh, Narcooses.
Oh, God, several others. Steakhouse 55, Napa Rose out in California. All these signature restaurants will have their blends offered.
You're like the coffee sommelier.
Yes.
Yeah, in a sense.
That is fantastic.
So
I'm a very lucky guy. I get to wake up every day and do something I love.
Oh.
I'm a very, very lucky young man.
I'm
Old
jealous.
Man, excuse me. Who am I kidding?
Well, it certainly comes through because, I don't know. I know what I like as far as coffee goes, but to be able to customize a blend of coffee for those specific restaurants and those specific resorts, that is, to me, is just amazing. That is very cool.
Well, it gives us a great sense of pride to be able to do it, and to be, to get the response back that we do. Like Tim said, to have guests go into one of the resorts and come back to our website and compliment us on the coffee they had in their room. Do you know how happy that would make me as a roaster? Because normally when you go into a hotel, even if it's a big branded name, normally it's just so stale, and it's something that the hotels have to give away, so they usually try and give you the cheapest thing they can.
Yep.
And to have, what's unique at Disney is, number one, they care. They want to offer their guests the best they possibly can. Number two, because of us being the roaster and us being in their backyard, there's, very rare will you ever have a coffee that's in a room that was roasted, maybe a week or two ago. I mean, that's what really is really making the difference. I like to, and I tell them this all the time. It's like, Disney, you have your own personal roasting company. Very few places have that. But these restaurants, they order on Monday. It goes into the roasting schedule Monday night. It gets roasted Tuesday or Wednesday. Thursday, it's in DC3.
Wow.
So they're, the coffee that these restaurants are serving is, maybe 4 to 5 days old.
You can ask for anything better.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Unlike probably most, and I'm not slamming anybody, but most hotels that, like you said, just give you whatever is the cheapest thing they can find. That stuff's probably been in a warehouse for weeks.
Oh, when you're that big, you've got to go through the distribution channels. It goes into a master distribution center, and then it gets spidered out to different locations. And we are a roast to order company. We're not a produced from inventory company. So when you order, it goes on. If you drives some of our customers crazy, but when you call an order, it's like, hey, I'm out of this. Can I have it tomorrow? It's like, no, sorry. We're going to make it tomorrow. And then depending on how it has to get packaged, it might be 3 or 4 days. If it has to go into a foil bag that doesn't have a valve, it has to sit for a little bit and gas off.
Right.
So it's, unfortunately we're not able to do emergency orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so much better.
Yeah.
It's freshly roasted.
It's definitely, coffee has a definite shelf life.
Chris, I was going to ask you what your favorite blend or coffee is, but I have a feeling it'd be like asking you who's your favorite child.
Pretty much. I mean, it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Mm-hmm. I try to switch about every 2 to 3 days. I go back and drive my apprentice roastmasters crazy. So what did you roast today that you think is any good? And like, here it comes. 'Cause I take it home, and the first thing in the morning, which for me is usually any time between 3:30 and 4 a.m. I'm there with my press pot, and it's the first thing in the morning. My palate's nice and fresh. There's no distractions, and I'm really able to break it down. And much to their surprise, lately, I've come back with nothing but compliments.
Well, how lucky are they to be apprentices, for you to be their master, for to be teaching them your art?
Really? They complain a lot because I ask a lot of them. But I say, you guys have to get the benefit of a lot of years of knowledge where I had to learn the hard way. So you guys should be enjoying. You're still a pain in the butt.
Well, it can't be an easy field to get into.
It's all for your own good.
That's right.
You're never happy. That's it. You should never be happy. We can always do better. And that's the thing. Which one of the things that that I love about this. I've been doing this for 28 years now, and I learn something new every day. This is something that, Mother Nature and God is in control of, not me. Mm-hmm. So the product is ever changing. And, like any great chef, our job and our focus is consistency. And you hear a lot of coffee companies talking about the consistency. We have tools. We have spectrographs. We have color meters. We have moisture meters. We have thermal probe. All these different scientific tools at our disposal that will never, ever replace the human palate. And, like any great chef, he might make the same dish, say it's a veal piccata. He might make, 20 veal piccatas a night but each one might be just slightly different. But each one in its own right is fantastic. So that's the way I approach roasting. Because, no two beans, beans from this year are not going to be exactly the same as they were last year. So it's knowing how to adjust. If you have to take a certain coffee out that's lacking acidity, add a coffee that has a lot of acidity to make the blend, where it needs to be, but have it consistently good. That's where the skill and the years of experience really come in. Your customers will never know the difference. But, each time, for me personally and for us, not just myself, but for my team as well, that's the challenge is in, maintaining that quality, that consistency. Even though Mother Nature might throw us a curveball, it's knowing how to deal with that so that your customers are, never ever going to get a bad cup of coffee. That's where the pride comes in. Knowing how to do something like that is extremely important.
Well, you don't have to tell this story because I want our listeners to go to your website. Go to Joffrey.com, Joffreys.com, and click on their blog. If you want to find out how committed Chris is to coffee, you got to go down and check out their blog. And it's kind of toward the bottom of their blog. But you went to Hawaii and found a blend back a few years ago that was incredible. I love that story. But I want our listeners to go to your website and read that story because it really tells how dedicated and committed you are to this whole process and why your product is as good as it is because that was a very cool story about and you were only able to find 20 pounds of this coffee that was just incredible.
Yep. And, I had to beg them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. My poor wife didn't leave me. I drag her to Hawaii, and then what do? I make her tour coffee farms. She thought she was going on vacation, the poor girl. It's amazing she hasn't left me yet.
Chris, are you guys going to be doing anything involving with the Disney Cruise Line?
As a matter of fact, yes. We're very excited. We're going to be beginning to serve our coffee on 2 of the 4 ships beginning towards the end of April.
Oh, wow.
We're doing the Disney Magic first before she sails off to Europe. And then we'll be doing the first week of May, we'll be converting the Disney Wonder.
All right.
And
that's the one I'm going on in June. So.
Hey.
Woo!
Taste test coming.
You'll be drinking Joffrey's coffee.
Excellent.
And then those ships are going to be departing, and then the Dream and the Fantasy will be coming over. And those are scheduled to be switched over in May. Sometime in May, those 2 ships will be over. So by the middle of June, all 4 of the cruise line ships will be serving Joffrey's coffee.
Oh, that's outstanding. Is that going to be a Disney Cruise Line exclusive blend also?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that one was something... there was the challenge with that one, believe it or not, was that because of the way they have to brew it on the ships, we had to create a liquid product for them, which is something that was new for Joffrey's.
Mm.
And it took me probably a good 6 months of experimentation because being the coffee geek I am, typically liquid coffees are not that good. And I kind of sensed the reason that they weren't good is because, like I stated earlier, the rest, the ingredients will only result in, the recipe will only be. So I started to play around with different blends and had about 10 to 12 different kinds of samples until I figured out what was going to turn out to be a very good liquid product. And it was a valuable learning experience because it was the first time I'd ever had any experience with this product. And I found out a couple of things that I didn't know before and a couple of notions that I found out to be not true. Sometimes I don't know as much as I think I do. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, like you said,
I'm very, very pleased with what it came out with. I'm very, very pleased how it came out in the end. And I think hopefully the guests are going to be too.
Excellent. I'll have a full review after my trip in June to let everybody know.
I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, will do. Will do. You guys are, talk about the American success story. Wow. You started in a small little one-room building, and now look at you.
Yeah, we've been blessed. We've been very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Chris, thank you so much. That's all I got, Tim.
Oh, Bob, I can't have anything more. Chris DeMezzo from Joffrey's Coffee, thank you very much for joining us today. We've got a big education, and I just can't wait to try some of your coffees.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Bob. And just like to offer your listeners as a thank you for putting up with my rambling, if you go onto our website at Joffreys.com, we're going to offer a 20% discount code for you that I'll go ahead and put on for 30 days. And that code is ResortLoop20.
Oh.
And that will get you, that discount code will get you a 20% discount on all the products listed on the website.
Thank you very much. That is very generous. Thank you, Chris.
Chris, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Oh.
So we'll have the links up on our website for Joffreys.com and the coupon code there as well. So thanks again. Fantastic coffee and tea, by the way. We didn't get to the tea.
We didn't get to the tea
on another show.
We'll have to do a show on tea. I like a show on tea.
Yes.
We can do that.
Sounds like a plan. Well, Chris, thank you very much. I'm just going to wrap it up here real quick because I can't possibly top a 20% discount for the coffee.
No.
I'm Resort Loop Tim on Twitter. You've been listening
to us on the website.
Yeah, they're already typing on their keyboards. You've been listening to The Gateway to the Magic.
See you, everybody.